The wind tugged at my scarf as I stepped back from the curb, watching her lips freeze mid-smile. Naomi had been glowing all morning, lip gloss perfect, hair curled just enough to look effortless, phone already in her hand, like she couldn't wait to start posting. She leaned in like everything was fine, her voice light. "Just us girls, no drama, promise." I kissed her cheek, cool from the morning air, and handed over her suitcase. Then I said it. "Enjoy the island with Mason." There's a sound that isn't quite a gasp, not quite a breath. It's the sound of a mask slipping. She blinked once. No denial, no laugh, just that stiff half-smile people wear when they're trying to hold the performance. She turned, wheeled the bag behind her, and walked into the terminal without looking back. I stood there a moment longer, then pulled out my phone, not to text her, to open the banking app. If you're still listening and any of this feels uncomfortably familiar, hit like and subscribe. Most people just listen in silence, but that one click tells the team these stories matter. I didn't drive home. I drove to the bank, parked in the far corner of the lot where the sun hadn't yet melted the frost off the glass, and walked in with a folder, the same folder I'd quietly updated once a month since the first lie. It held printouts, receipts, screenshots, and a clipped copy of our prenup with 4 yellow tabs sticking out the side. I slid it across the desk to the manager, nodded, and said, "Freeze all joint access, everything." She raised her brows, said she'd need 5 minutes, and disappeared with the file. The funny thing about betrayal is that it doesn't always feel sharp. Sometimes it's dull, like background noise you've ignored too long. You train yourself to overlook the weird phone habits, the late night calls from Sarah, the way her gym clothes always smelled like a different detergent. You tell yourself it's nothing. You want to believe it's nothing, until it isn't. Back in the parking lot, I watched the screen as the transaction logs updated, account access removed, emergency withdrawal reversed, vehicle title transfers pending. I opened the Note app and typed one sentence to my attorney, Clause 6D triggered. She'd know what that meant. We'd buried it 5 years ago in fine print Naomi had skimmed and signed without blinking, in black and white, infidelity voids, all spousal claims, including future community property. It was a cold clause, but clear. I thought about the way Naomi's fingers had tightened around her phone at the curb, the twitch in her jaw, the absence of any protest. She knew I knew. What she didn't know was how long I'd known. It hadn't been one moment, it had been a slow gathering of moments. Like the night she left her phone unlocked on the nightstand and a message preview from Mason lit up the screen, "I can still taste the wine on you." Or the yoga class she never missed, even though she'd never liked yoga before him. Or the photo I was shown, sent by a friend, no commentary needed, Naomi on a rooftop bar with Mason, heads close, laughing, her hand on his chest like it belonged there. She called it alignment help. I called it foreshadowing. When I got home, I didn't go inside right away. I opened the mailbox and retrieved the small manila envelope I'd placed there days earlier. Inside, a single sheet of paper, not from me, but from Mason. A drunk, careless note he once left after a New Year's party, thinking I wouldn't check the mail till Monday. It had his name, his handwriting, and one clear line. "Tell her I remember the cabin, and I'm not sorry." I kept it, never mentioned it, but now it would be part of the story Naomi couldn't rewrite. That night, I made dinner for one, quietly, chopped garlic, seared chicken. The house didn't feel empty, it felt honest. Her scent still lingered in the hallway, floral, faint, artificial. I opened a window, let it out. Upstairs, I packed the rest of her things into 2 suitcases and 1 storage bin. I left her ring on top, not the engagement ring. She stopped wearing that 6 months ago, the little gold band we'd picked together at a street market in Florence, back when her smile had weight and not performance. It sat there, dull in the hallway light, meaningless now. I slept without dreaming, woke up before sunrise, changed the locks, canceled the shared streaming services, removed her emergency contact from my insurance, deleted the joint photo album. She would land in 2 days, maybe smiling, maybe rehearsed, but the stage would be gone, and so would her place in my life. The attorney called back just after 8:40 p.m. Her voice was clear, professional, but I could hear the shift in her tone when I confirmed it. "Yes," I said, "it's time." She didn't ask for proof. I'd already sent the photos, the messages, the drunken mailbox note. Instead, she said, We'll proceed per Clause 6D. Do you want to notify her formally, or should I? I stared at the glass of water on the counter. Didn't answer right away. Then, let's let the lock speak first. I hung up and opened the folder again. The tabs were still bright, corners sharp. I flipped to the property records first. House title, vehicle ownership, insurance beneficiaries. All had been restructured over the last 6 months, piece by piece. At the time, it felt like paranoia. Now it felt like I'd been laying sandbags before a flood. When she left that morning, she had access to everything. By nightfall, she had access to nothing. The bank clerk had asked me twice if I was sure I wanted to revoke her card privileges without notifying her. I said yes, quietly. The forms took 23 minutes to finalize. Her card declined 2 hours later at a boutique resort gift shop, according to the live log. She hadn't even made it to the beach yet. I forwarded the receipt to my attorney with one note, time-stamped. The Lexus was next. Title shifted to my sole ownership. Insurance updated. Her spare key deactivated by remote. I didn't want to leave her stranded, but I wasn't going to let her glide back in, smiling, acting like nothing had happened. The prenup clause had been my idea. Naomi had scoffed at it at the time. "You really think I'd cheat on you?" she'd said, arms crossed, eyebrows raised. I'd shrugged, told her it was just standard language. "It protects both of us." She barely skimmed the section, signed it with a flourish, probably thinking we'd never touch it again. Clause 6D. In the event of proven infidelity, all claims to joint property, spousal support, or community assets are forfeited, effective immediately upon documentation. She'd insisted the island trip was just for the girls, but when I saw Mason's reflection in her sunglasses on a group photo, his shirt, unmistakable, the same one from his birthday, I knew, not suspected, knew. And the moment I said his name at the curb, her body told me everything her mouth didn't. This wasn't about catching her. This was about removing her from a life she thought she could disrespect and still return to, quietly, cleanly. I walked through each room that night, laptop in hand, updating permissions, closing shared files, removing her from emergency contacts, shared cloud storage, even our family planner. Everything had her fingerprint on it, digital or otherwise. I wiped each one away like cleaning a fogged mirror. At 9:12, she sent a message. "Landed, no signal until now, love you." No emoji, no photo. I stared at it for 10 seconds, then archived the thread. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened our digital storage vault and uploaded everything, backed it to a secondary drive, labeled and time-stamped. The messages, the location pings, the blurry screenshot of her hand on Mason's thigh. The one from a mutual friend who wrote simply, "You should know." By 10:04, every document was indexed, every password changed. Her name had been on the house. Past tense. I'd initiated the quiet transfer 6 months ago after she started listing me as her roommate in a few social posts. She thought it was cute. I saw it as rehearsal. At 10:45, the title company confirmed, finalized, recorded, no reversal. I shut the folder, poured a glass of whiskey, sat in the dark. This wasn't rage, it wasn't heartbreak. It was logistics. It was dignity, mechanized, routed, executed. She thought this would be a detour, that she'd come back tan, contrite, maybe even defiant, but what she didn't understand was this wasn't about punishing her. It was about removing her, and by the time her return flight landed, she'd be stepping off into a life that no longer included mine. She arrived mid-morning, the kind of overcast morning where the clouds don't move and the air feels stuck. Her rideshare pulled up slow to the curb. Same driver she used before, a habit I recognized by the way she texted him, and waited until he was fully parked before stepping out. Naomi looked different, less polished, hair pinned back messily, no makeup. Her phone clutched in one hand, suitcase dragging in the other. She stood there for a full minute just staring at the door, then she reached for her key. It didn't work. She tried again, jiggled it, pressed her thumb against the frame like that would help. Her bag tipped over. Still didn't open. That's when she noticed the envelope taped to the wood, just above the handle, clear tape on all 4 corners so the wind wouldn't catch it. In black ink, my handwriting. "Spare keys don't work anymore. Check with Mason." She didn't move for a long time, just stood there, reading it. then rereading, then again. I watched from 2 floors up, through a narrow slit in the blinds. I wasn't hiding. I just didn't feel like giving her the stage she wanted. Not yet. Her phone came out next. First call lasted 4 seconds. Hung up. Second one rang. She pressed it to her ear, then again. By the fifth, her voice was loud enough to carry through the porch, something between angry and pleading. 23 calls. The last one, her mother. She paced back and forth across the porch, that suitcase bumping into the railings every few steps, still trying to sound composed, but her gestures were all wrong, too quick, too sharp. I could hear snatches. No, I don't know what he's doing. Yes, I'm locked out. I didn't think he'd actually... And then she stopped, dead still. She pulled out her email. I'd left no message, just a link. County records. Her name was no longer on the deed. Filed, finalized, recorded. I'd started the process months ago under a conditional trust, one she had no idea existed. Quiet paperwork, strategic timing, no fraud, no trickery, just foresight, because I knew, not just about Mason, but about how she moved when she thought the doors would always open. She tried the key again. Still nothing. Naomi sat down on the porch steps, hands between her knees, phone in her lap. For the first time in years, she looked small. Not angry, not manipulative, just stunned. The woman who once ran entire social calendars without blinking now didn't know what to do with 10 minutes of stillness. Her phone buzzed again. She silenced it. Probably another one of those fake friend responses. People who once laughed with her, now not sure which side of the mess they wanted to stand on. She stayed there almost 40 minutes. I didn't come out, I didn't text, I didn't unlock the door. She wasn't just locked out of the house, she was locked out of a version of herself that didn't exist anymore. The Naomi who smiled her way through mistakes, who flirted her way through questions, who talked circles around blame and landed on her feet because she thought she was still charming. Not anymore. After a while, she wheeled her bag back to the street. No rideshare this time. She stood there alone, holding her phone to the sky like it would catch a signal that wasn't coming. When the car finally came for her, same brand, different driver, she didn't look back. I stood in the hallway behind the new locks and just breathed, not victorious, not even satisfied, just done. She thought she could come home and explain, but there was no home to return to, only a door with her name scraped off the mailbox, and a man inside who no longer carried her weight. The first message from her attorney came less than 36 hours after she left my doorstep. The tone was exactly what I expected, measured arrogance dressed as diplomacy. "We understand there's been a misunderstanding regarding Naomi's return," it began. "She is interested in an amicable conversation about property and joint assets." Conversation, not claim, not demand. Conversation. They were fishing, hoping I didn't know how deep I'd already buried the hooks. My attorney, Danielle, forwarded the message to me with a single word. Cute. I told her to respond with the clause. Clause 6D, the spine of the entire arrangement. The quiet line Naomi never cared to read, sandwiched between tax clauses and sunset provisions. It had been reviewed, notarized, recertified 3 years ago without revision. Still binding. Still final. Danielle didn't argue. She simply attached the clause and replied, "Per Section 6D, the client's position is non-negotiable. Claims are nullified upon presentation of documented infidelity." 4 hours later, we got their reply. It was shorter. No more cheerful phrasing, no more assumed leverage, just requesting reconsideration. Client is open to reconciliation counseling. I read that line twice. Counseling, not accountability, not ownership. Counseling. Danielle asked if I wanted to entertain it, for optics, for negotiation power, for the game. No, I said, no games. So instead, we sent them a packet, no words, no opinions, just facts. Timestamped screenshots, Naomi and Mason at the rooftop bar, GPS tags, message logs, hotel invoices, a line item for a couple's massage booked under a pseudonym that matched a private joke from a vacation Naomi and I once took. Matching receipts from the same beachfront suite on the night she told me her phone died. And then the note, the one Mason wrote in sloppy ink, wedged into the mailbox 2 months back when he'd come by to talk. He was drunk, arrogant, thought I wasn't home, thought I wouldn't find it. The paper was bent and stained by the time I pulled it from the box, but the words were still legible. She said you'd never figure it out, but if you do, tell her I still think about the cabin. I had it notarized the next morning. We sent a scanned copy. Danielle titled the file Addendum A Acknowledgement. Their side went quiet for 2 days. Then came the phone call. I didn't answer. Danielle did. She said the voice on the other end sounded different. Not hostile, just tired. He wanted to know if you'd settle quietly, let her keep the car, maybe a small cash amount to walk away. I told her to read him the second half of Clause 6D, slowly this time, the one that mentioned how any attempt to contest or publicly defame post-infidelity nullifies even personal asset leniencies. In short, try to drag this out, and she walks away with less than nothing. That was the last we heard from him. No more inbox dings, no follow-up texts, no surprise subpoenas, just absence, which was fine, because I wasn't seeking a fight. I wasn't wounded. I was finished. And all that was left now was for her to understand just how far from center she'd drifted before she noticed she couldn't swim back. Let the silence deliver what her lawyer couldn't. It started with a blurry selfie, Naomi in her car, tear-streaked, hair pulled into a messy bun like she hadn't slept. The caption read, "It's insane how fast someone can turn on you. 7 years, gone, just like that." No names, no tags, but everyone knew. She followed it with a longer story post, white text on black screen, the digital equivalent of shouting in a hallway. "Everyone makes mistakes," she wrote, "but to act like I'm a monster over one moment of emotional confusion, that's not love, that's control." She wanted sympathy, validation. A few dozen friends typing, "You don't deserve this," or "He's trash anyway," in the comments. Instead, nothing. Not even the usual 3 or 4 girlfriends who normally reposted every outfit pic or brunch boomerang, not a single, not one comment, because they'd all seen what came before. Mason's birthday party had been 3 months earlier. At our place, streamers still up when the sun set. Naomi wore a red dress I hadn't seen before. I remember because when I reached for her hand on the patio, she pulled it away without flinching, then laughed it off like I was being weird. 10 minutes later, she was inside, standing a little too close to Mason by the sink, pouring drinks with a rhythm that looked rehearsed. Someone had taken a photo that night. Mason leaning into her ear, her eyes closed, smiling. It had circulated in the group chats. I never asked who took it, didn't matter. By the time she posted her version of events, most of those people had already watched the unraveling up close. They remembered her giggles and the new perfume, the just stretching yoga snaps she shared that curiously cropped out the instructor's face. Naomi tried again 2 days later, this time tagging friends. People who know me know this isn't who I am. Again, nothing. One friend liked it, then unliked it, even her sister. Janelle, the ride or die, the one who once drove 3 hours just to bring her soup during a flu, stayed silent. No calls, no likes, no appearances and comments. Naomi messaged her directly. I know because she showed up at my condo 2 nights later, tearful, saying Janelle wasn't responding to anything. She thinks I cheated, Naomi whispered. She said she saw your little folder. Why would you do that? I didn't answer. She paced in front of my building for 20 minutes before getting back into her car. She tried one last time, a post about healing, sprinkled with self-help quotes and a moody black and white photo of ocean waves. Comments disabled. After that, she stopped posting. The woman who once couldn't eat a croissant without documenting it had gone silent, because the story she was trying to spin unraveled faster than she could stitch it back together. There's only so many times you can scream, "It wasn't like that," before people remember exactly how it was. When trust dies in public, it doesn't scream. It just exits the room and leaves you standing there, waiting for an applause that never comes. The mornings were different now. No blaring alarm, no cold half-conversations over toast, just the sound of boat lines creaking gently in the marina and gulls cutting the quiet with sharp cries. My condo overlooked the docks, 3 floors up, a wide glass wall instead of a balcony. I kept the curtains half drawn, enough to let in the blue haze off the water, but still keep the world at a distance. I'd fallen into a rhythm. Brew at 6:45, first sip by 7, walk barefoot across the hardwood, glance at the tide line. There was a peace in it, in the stillness. in not needing to explain where I was going or why I preferred silence over small talk. Some mornings I'd see familiar faces down by the marina. Retirees with tackle boxes, young couples with takeout coffees, pretending they weren't arguing. Nobody looked up, not to my window, not to my life, until her. It was mid-November, cold but not cruel. I stood with a mug in hand, heat pressing against my palm, eyes still heavy, and there she was, Naomi, at the gate, same frame, same face, but nothing about her was the same. No makeup, not even mascara, hair tied back in a way that said she hadn't bothered with much more than a brush. No jewelry, not even the necklace she used to wear everywhere, the little silver one she once claimed she'd never take off, because I gave it to her after our first fight, and it reminded her of commitment. She was wearing a gray hoodie, sleeves pushed up, standing still as a photograph. I didn't move, neither did she. There was no dramatic gesture, no phone lifted, no attempt to get my attention. She just stood there as if hoping her presence alone might be enough, that I'd open the door, come down, say her name. She didn't know that the locks had changed again, not out of fear, just finality. I watched her for a long time. She didn't fidget, didn't check her phone, just stared up toward the building, toward the glass, like maybe the version of me she remembered might still be watching. And she was right. I was watching, but not the way she wanted. I noticed things differently now. The way her shoes didn't match her outfit, the way her shoulders slouched inward, no longer squared with that quiet entitlement she used to carry. She looked lost, not shattered, just quietly undone. 3 months had passed since the last message, 2 since her lawyer stopped replying, and 1 since I'd heard through a mutual friend that she moved back in with her mother for now. The girl who once mocked living in your childhood bedroom like it's cute had been sleeping beneath a pink ceiling fan for weeks. I took another sip. The coffee had cooled. I didn't mind. She stayed there for almost 5 minutes. Not long enough to cause a scene, just long enough to let the silence between us swell into something too wide to step over. Then she turned. No dramatic pause, no lingering glance, just one last look at the gate latch before walking away, hands deep in her pockets. I didn't follow, because she wasn't standing at my door. She was standing in the past, hoping it hadn't closed completely. And maybe that's the cruelest part of regret, not the weight of it, but realizing the door you once had the key to isn't locked and it's gone. She was waiting by the awning, arms folded tight against her chest like she was holding herself together with invisible thread. I stepped out into the dusk after a long meeting, and there she was, Naomi. Same coat from last year, collar turned up, hair loose around her face. She didn't speak right away, just stepped forward and said, 5 minutes? Her voice was low, measured, practiced maybe, or maybe she'd run out of rehearsals and finally meant it. I looked at her, then down at my watch. 5. We didn't go anywhere private, just crossed the street and sat on one of the city's public benches under a weak yellow streetlight. People passed by without slowing down. Students, a couple arguing softly, someone on a scooter humming out of tune. Normal life, continuing around the stillness we sat in. Naomi took a breath. I wasn't myself, she said. I didn't answer. I watched a city bus lurch to a stop. She tried again. That trip, I felt lost. Everything was slipping, and Mason, he wasn't planned, I just didn't feel seen anymore. I thought we were coasting. Coasting, as if betrayal was a symptom of boredom. She pressed her palms against her thighs, then looked over at me like she expected something, agreement, forgiveness, maybe even shared guilt. I gave her nothing. I know what it looked like, she continued, quieter now, but I didn't want to hurt you. I thought we could, maybe, clear things up. Just talk to people, let them hear my side. That was when I reached into my coat and pulled out the envelope. Simple cream stock, unmarked except for her name printed in small black serif. I held it out. She took it slowly. What's this? Your trustee board request, I said. She blinked. You sent it to them. No, I said. You did 2 weeks ago through your lawyer. I saw the moment she realized I knew. Every detail. Every attempt to preserve some corner of her former image. She opened the flap with care, slid out the single-page response. I didn't have to read it to her. I already had it memorized. The board had declined her request for formal clarification. No retraction of public records, no statement on her behalf, no reversal of her name being removed from all philanthropic media, press releases, or alumni materials. Her previous role, representational spouse on our joint foundation board, was no longer applicable. Her actions voided representation. She read it once, then again. Her eyes scanned the bottom for a loophole that didn't exist. I waited. After a moment, she whispered, "You had them cut me out." I didn't flinch. "You cut yourself out. I just filed the paperwork." Naomi folded the page carefully, like handling something fragile. She stared forward. I could feel the weight of it setting in, the understanding that the house was gone, the nameplate removed, the channels closed. "This isn't who I am," she said quietly. "Then maybe you shouldn't have done things that proved otherwise." The bench creaked as she shifted, hands now gripping the envelope tight. A woman passed by with 2 kids, both laughing. Naomi turned her face slightly, as if embarrassed to be seen. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just deflated. The shoulders dropped first, then her breath caught, like she was trying not to make a sound. For the first time since all of it began, I saw something close to shame. I stood up. She didn't follow. I walked back across the street, through the glass door, up the stairs, and into the restaurant where my table was waiting. The hostess smiled. My guest, a client, not a date, stood to shake my hand. Normal life, still moving. When I looked back through the window, Naomi was still on the bench, not speaking, not moving, just holding that thin envelope like it was heavier than everything she'd lost. It started with a TikTok. Grainy, vertical, poorly lit, but devastating. The voice in the video was calm, clear, not angry, just tired in the way people are when they've been holding on to truth for too long. Mason's ex, a woman named Talia, someone I remembered only vaguely from an old dinner party. She sat on the edge of a bed, holding a glass of wine, and looked directly into the camera. Naomi knew what she was doing. She didn't trip into it. She planned it, lied for it, smirked through it, and she wasn't the only one who got hurt. The video was barely 3 minutes, but that was all it took. Screenshots flashed mid-video. Messages Naomi sent from a burner account to Mason at 2 a.m., timestamps from the island trip, one log showing her location toggled off minutes before Mason's appeared at the same hotel. The details weren't doctored. They were just undeniable. By the next morning, it had 84,000 views. Then came the dissection. Internet sleuths, strangers with time, curiosity, and a mean streak for hypocrisy, started stitching the story together like it was a true crime documentary. One pulled up Naomi's old vacation posts, analyzed the angle of her sunglasses, and zoomed in to reveal Mason's tattoo in the reflection. Another pulled calendar invites from a shared wellness retreat app that had been public for weeks, Mason's name clearly marked on a registration list. The internet doesn't forgive arrogance. It hunts it. Naomi tried to contain the fallout, deleted one post, then 2, turned off comments, removed story highlights. But she moved too late. Someone screen recorded her original response, a shaky iPhone video where she muttered something about emotional confusion and being taken advantage of emotionally. That was when the meme dropped. A freeze frame of her laughing on the rooftop, glass in hand, hair caught in the wind. Captioned in all caps, "Just girls, huh?" It spread like gasoline finding a match. Instagram reels, Reddit threads, even a parody soundbite on TikTok. Dozens of users lip-syncing "It wasn't physical, just emotional," while cutting to screenshots of hands clasped under tables and duplicate hotel keycards. She disabled comments. Then she disabled the account. Mason disappeared, deleted everything. No posts, no stories, not even tagged photos. Rumors floated that he'd moved back to Texas, ducking both the scandal and a growing pile of backlash from other women he'd ghosted. People Naomi once called friends began quietly removing her from tagged photos. Group dinners she used to organize went ahead without her. Her name vanished from party invites. She became a social blank space, known but unwelcome. Even the ones who didn't fully turn on her stopped defending her, because silence, when loud enough, says everything. The last public trace was a short post she made on a lockdown account, visible only to a few hundred, white background, black text. I'm not perfect, I made mistakes, but no one deserves to be hunted like this. The post stayed up for 12 minutes, then it vanished too. She thought she could bury the trip, spin the narrative, cry just enough to reclaim the stage. But the internet doesn't just remember, it archives. And every time someone searched her name, they didn't find her version. They found the meme, the clips, the receipts. She thought the fallout would be private. Instead, it was permanent. The notary's office smelled like dry paper and old air conditioning, neutral walls, beige chairs, a calendar 3 days behind. It was the kind of place where real things happen without ceremony. No gavel, no audience, just ink, signatures, and the sound of pages turning. Naomi sat across from me at the small laminate table. Her hair was tied back, strands falling loose near her temple. She wore no jewelry, no makeup. Her nails, once shellacked weekly, were chipped and bare. In front of her, 2 copies of the final divorce agreement. A pen rested between them, positioned just so. She didn't pick it up right away. Instead, she stared at the heading, lips slightly parted, like she wanted to say something but couldn't find the version of herself who used to be good with words. I didn't rush her. The notary cleared her throat, polite but firm. "When you're ready, Ms. Walsh." Naomi looked at me then. For the first time in the room, for the first time in weeks, her eyes weren't red. She hadn't been crying, but there was a hollowness there I hadn't seen before, like even her pride had left the building early. "You really planned this?" she asked. Her voice wasn't accusatory. It was smaller than that, less about blame, more about disbelief, as if she was just now realizing how far ahead I'd been walking while she was still playing games in the rear view. I met her gaze once, just once. I planned to be respected. No inflection, no anger, just the truth. Naomi's jaw tightened for half a second. Then she blinked, looked back down, and picked up the pen. She signed both pages, carefully, slowly, like she was trying to make the letters mean something different. The ink bled just a little on the paper, enough to smudge the edge of her last name. The notary stamped, slid the pages into a folder. "Congratulations," she said flatly, "because there's no script for endings that don't come with champagne." Naomi didn't look at me again. She stood, adjusted the strap on her bag, and walked toward the exit with her shoulders just slightly hunched. Not from grief, but from weight. The weight of understanding, maybe. Of knowing there would be no appeal, no redemption arc, no retelling of the story where she comes out wiser, softer, somehow still the one who mattered most, because the story had already been written, and she wasn't the author anymore. When the door closed behind her, I exhaled. Not relief, not triumph, just finality. There had been no court fight, no payout, no alimony, no division of property. Clause 6D had stood exactly as intended, clean, quiet, absolute. The house was mine, the vehicles, the savings, the foundation, all severed cleanly without need for drama. She hadn't even contested, because by the time we reached this room, every defense she might have offered had already crumbled, in silence, in screenshots, in the spaces where her voice used to echo and no one answered back. She lost more than a marriage that day. She lost the illusion that she still controlled the narrative, and as she disappeared through the frosted glass door, the world outside didn't pause, didn't gasp, didn't mourn. It just went on, without her. The gate agent called my group number and I stepped forward, boarding pass in hand, breeze of jet fuel and overconditioned air swirling in the tunnel. Turks and Caicos. Not a bucket list trip, not a post-divorce celebration, just peace. Blue water, warm wind, silence not broken by tension. A friend had a house there, said it was better than therapy. I believed him. The plane wasn't full. Afternoon flight. Rows scattered with couples in sandals, retirees with mystery novels, a few honeymooners already half tipsy off airport cocktails. I settled into seat 14A, window view, sun low and soft through the scratched plastic. I hadn't even buckled my seatbelt when I heard the voice behind me. Small, curious. "Mom," the boy said, "why does that lady look sad?" I didn't turn around right away, just glanced sideways toward the aisle, The slow shuffle of boarding passengers continued. Bags overhead, elbows bumped, polite apologies. Then I heard the mother's answer, hushed but clear. "Shh, sweetie, don't stare." Still, I looked, just once, over my shoulder, quick, clean. Naomi, seat 32C, middle, alone. She hadn't seen me. Her gaze was fixed on the seat back in front of her, hands clasped in her lap, motionless. No book, no earbuds, just stillness, like someone sitting inside their own unfinished sentence. Her hair was shorter, pulled back in a way that wasn't quite neat, wasn't quite messy. She wore jeans, a faded sweatshirt, and an expression that didn't move when the flight attendant smiled at her, like she'd forgotten what smiling back even felt like. I turned back forward, buckled in, pulled my book from the seat pocket, a novel about a man who rebuilds boats in silence after losing everything that never truly belonged to him. The engine started humming. I smiled and turned the page. The rest of the flight passed without incident. She never walked past me, never looked my way. Maybe she never knew I was there, or maybe she did, but knew better than to say anything. That part doesn't matter. What mattered was this. There was no drama, no confrontation, no need for a final word or pointed glare. Just a man heading somewhere peaceful and a woman still trailing the weight of what she'd lost. Not just the marriage, but the story she thought she could control. I didn't need her apology, didn't need closure. She was the one still searching for it, and I'd already arrived. Not at revenge, not at justice, at distance, at stillness, at standards so quiet, they didn't need to be spoken to be enforced. As the wheels lifted off the runway and the cabin tilted gently toward the sun, I looked down at the blue blur of ocean beyond the clouds, and I didn't look back.